spread a little aloha around the world at Breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome back, everybody. Breakfast with Bob, our Not Quite Cone edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Master Spas, as fuels go longer. Hoka Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, DeBoer Wetsuits, Quintana Roo, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest coming off his biggest event, over 1,500 athletes in Newport Beach, at Newport Beach Triathlon, part of the California Triathlon series. The president of CalTri, Mr. Thom Richmond, joins us from his hidden location in Dublin, Ireland. What the heck are you up to, Tommy?
No race announcements today, but as they say, happy wife, happy life. So after the season, it was nice to get away a little bit.
I love it. So 10th anniversary. When did you guys start CalTri? Back in 2014, moving into your 10th anniversary. Obviously, you do a lot of other things. You're a tech guy. What got you into putting on events? Because I don't think there's a more thankless job than being a race director.
Yeah, we started the club California Triathlon in 2010, and then we started races. If you remember correctly, you were there at Santa Fe Dam in 2015, and so next year marks our 10th anniversary. And we look back. If you look really closely at the data, about 2012 was the peak of triathlon.
Yeah,
and we were training a lot of people to get ready for triathlons, and they came back and said, gosh, it's just too expensive. So we said, well, let's try to figure that out as well. And that has grown and grown and grown. And now we're over 20 races from the East Coast to the West Coast. We're in our fourth year as an example, we're in our fourth year in Texas, 3 races in Texas. So we love putting on the races. We have it's just amazing the experience of having that impact on that weekend with the swim clinics on Saturday morning and then race day on Sunday.
So when I look at the landscape of triathlon, especially in Southern California, and we look at events that are no longer with us, from Catalina to Wildflower to Carlsbad to Vineman, which had become Ironman Santa Rosa, Super Frog, Super Seal, all the Camp Pendleton triathlons, LA Triathlon. It's been a decreasing market, and you've sort of bucked that trend because you're creating new events. And your numbers continue to go up. Why?
Well, in especially in Southern California, and we're going to be adding 2 more races this year, 2 more, maybe even 3 more this year. We call it great races in great places. So when you can put a race on at Playa del Rey, when you can put a race on at Ventura, Lake Paris, certainly Newport. And then now in Northern California, this year we did a point-to-point resurrected a short course version of Vineman. So you still get the Johnson's Beach, you still get the Windsor High School. We wrote a $10,000 check to that high school, to help them with what they need to do. And then this year Folsom, we're adding a race up in Folsom. And so I think if you have great races in great places, and you talk about affordability, the $85 all in, including insurance for early bird. You're aware of what's going on in around the country. That's a big improvement. We also launched last year, probably the biggest thing that has helped our community, and certainly me as a race director and our team, is what we call the best 15 words in triathlon. And that's free race transfers, deferrals, and participant transfers as late as the day before the race. So at our races, on Saturday night at 11 o'clock, if you're not ready to go, you just transfer. You just take the next bus, and we won't charge you anything to do that. We're not going to hold your money hostage. And then this year we're really excited. We announced it to celebrate our 10th anniversary. We were able to be in a position where we can offer free race entries for 7 to 17. And when I say free, I mean everything. None of our kids will pay a dime, zero. They won't pay a run sign-up fee. We have great partners that run sign-up, and they allow that. We don't, the insurance is put into that. So it's a big investment, and we're really happy to have public and private partnerships that allow us to do that. And even since the announcement, those public-private partnerships have come forward.
So you're talking kids 7 to 17 pay nothing. They come out and get the triathlon experience, no fees, no, USA Tri fees, none of that type of thing.
There's $0, and that's all of our races. The tech on that is a little tricky, can be a little tricky. So if God forbid somebody finds out that they got charged $3 or something, let us know. But we believe we're seeing tons of registrations at $0, and that's the way we want to go. We want to get the next generation out to our races, and we really believe we're the only organization in the country that has both the product, races all over the country, and the commitment, the financial ability to do it. And because of that, some of the we have great partners. Kendall Jackson has renewed for next year, and they are a great partner. They're based up in Sonoma, $500 million, the largest family wine company in the country, a non-endemic sponsor, and then organizations like the Feed. They're growing left and right, obviously associated with the Tour de France, a great partner for us. And then Blue 70 has been a partner for, 5 or 6 years. But new partners that we'll be announcing in the off season, utilities, a national supermarket.
Nice.
So we're announcing some of those, and I think that can be driven by that youth program. I think they really want to be associated with getting kids, the benefits of a multi-sport lifestyle.
So how much do you think your success is tied in the fact that you're an age group guy, right? And so as an age group guy, you're going, gosh, I don't feel well. I'd like to move to another race. Maybe I should be offering that. You can transfer whenever the heck you want. You want to bring your kids, they should be racing for free. We also, as someone who's done a lot of your races from where I'm at in the racks, I can see the swim start. I can see the swim. I see the finish of the race. Everything is in close proximity to each other. Do you feel a lot of the fact that your numbers are growing? It comes from the fact that you know what athletes want.
Well, right now, I know what slow athletes want. That's how I feel in the off season. But we're working on it. But yeah, no, that's right. I don't know that anybody got into this sport saying, one day I'm going to be a race director, and when I become a race director, I'm going to have odorous transfer and deferral policies.
Right.
I think there's, I know that it is compelling on our organization. If I had the first thing to pick in terms of if I was picking features I wanted for a race, it would be that transfer and deferral. I'll give you a great example. Last year when we didn't have it, we had a younger woman, 35-year-old woman, get in touch. And even though we had offered insurance, even though, there was a clear refund policy, no refunds, she missed all the deadlines. She said, I had a miscarriage. What can you do for me?
Yeah.
Explain, how would you do your policy, to explain your policy to that lady and feel good about it and go to bed at night.
Right. No, you're exactly right. You got to do the key at the end of the day is you want to be treated the way you want to be treated. You want to treat other people the way you expect to be treated.
And this year at LA, I'll give you two examples. DC and LA were two great examples. DC, we were anticipating storms. Maybe there would be storms the next day. Same with Lake Monticello in Virginia. Folks had the ability to, hey, if I think it's going to rain, I don't train in the rain. I'm not good in the rain. But I have this great policy that allows me to take the next race. And so we keep those athletes safe and that they're not out on the course, doing something they aren't comfortable with. And then LA, as an example, we threw a swim clinic on Saturday, rough waves, Sunday, 3 to 4 foot waves. We're bringing a lot of new people in the sport. I do not want them to have to make a choice between their safety and their pocketbook. And that transfer deferral policy meant that many of those LA athletes could join the 1,545 registered athletes at Newport just 2 weeks later.
So when it comes to our sport, I think the biggest deterrent is the swim. Swim scares the crap out of people. I think people underestimate because they're coming from a running background. They go half marathon, marathon. Oh, quarter mile swim. What's the big deal? But you've had people come out to that swim clinic understanding, well, maybe I should check this out. And they're signed up for the Olympic. And you can tell within 5 strokes that, dude, you shouldn't even be thinking about that.
We're so excited about the swim clinics. First of all, the swim clinics are all about safety. It's the day before. It's typically almost always 7:30 to 9. We had a bit of a transition on there as well. These are folks that in many cases, based on where they live, their lack of preparation, they're literally over their head. This might be the very first time that they're doing open water swimming. Is that it would be the next day of the race.
Right.
So they can either shift, again, at no cost from an Olympic to a sprint, or they could shift into something like a run, bike, run, where they don't have to get into the water. And God forbid they're just not feeling it that weekend. They can push it to the next race when maybe they had a little more preparation. That transfer and deferral policy is about safety. And much as we would never do a race without a swim warm up, we would never do a race again without having that transfer and deferral policy in place. I thought it was an economic benefit, which it is.
Yes.
For us, it's a safety benefit.
So the majority of races in this country are sanctioned by USA Triathlon. You chose to go a different direction and to self-insure. Well, why make that decision, and what have been the positives and negatives of doing that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. There's at least 10 companies out there that provide insurance, race insurance. We actually partner with Sadler Insurance down in South Carolina. They provide insurance that meets or exceeds requirements in all 50 states. And we get that coverage for $3.71 per athlete. And by the way, that number is buried in the cost of the price. So at Early Bird, you're paying $78.71 plus the 6% run sign up fee, and that's it. There's no hidden fees. But why we made that decision, I think it's threefold. Number one, we wanted to pass on those savings. If we have 10,000 athletes a year, that's $120,000 that's not getting passed on to our athletes. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
The second thing is our relays. So if $75 would be an Olympic event, the Olympic relay is also $75. So we're saving that relay team $45 in insurance fees.
Well, that's right. So if you're doing a relay, so if you're doing quarter mile swim and the other guy's doing 12-mile bike and the other guy's doing a 3-mile run, each person's paying $15 for that 1-day license for USA Tri, and you avoid that.
That's right. Yeah. No, that's a big deal. That's absolutely a big deal.
Yeah.
I think the other two positives are we keep our data. As you know, I'm a ex Disney guy.
Yes.
Data is is the new oil. It's been said so many times. And so if as the one piece of advice I give to race directors, and we have dozens of race directors who use our insurance now for some of these reasons, you can't have your registration company, you can't have your timer, and you certainly can't have your insurance company stepping on it, because then when it comes down to getting sponsors and other reasons, they don't have to go to you. They can just go to potentially your timer or insurance company and cut a side deal on your data. We've seen it happen again and again and again. And in my opinion, any race director that lets their data go has a pretty short runway in their future.
I mean, if you think about it, as a race director, you say I own the Hamul Triathlon. Well, I own the name, but it's up to the city of Hamul to give me the permit to do it. So really, the only thing I own is my data. If I don't have that, I have nothing.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that, and we do work with race directors all over the country. But like, I'll give you a great example in Southern California. Every one of those venues were races that had been done there previously.
Right.
Renegade had been at Ventura. Pacific had been at Newport. Saul had been out at Lake Paris, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And so, bringing those races back. So in Southern California, again, you and I are Southern Californians. The last 4 races in Southern California, drum roll, were actually Cal-Tri Events races. Those are the last 4 new races.
Right.
So they're not making new races. Now, other places around the country, Midwest, Texas, a little less of that. But, on the East Coast, as an example, we use the same venues as, there's no magic new venues that are coming out. And I think what you had is, you had race directors, especially pre-COVID, who thought, my retirement plan is selling these races. But what I don't think they understood was they don't own the park venue.
Right.
The equipment is very there's no barrier to entry for the equipment, and really all they do own is their data. And it's interesting. So I'll give you a great example. I think the last year we used the USA Triathlon data was 2018.
Mhm.
And we had 500 folks at Newport. Again, in 2023, we had 1,545 folks. So the 1 or 2 folks who are really focused on that path, maybe that would be going to Atlantic
Nationals
City
or worlds or something like that.
Sure. Typically, like, our demographic is younger, 30, 32.
Mhm.
Typically that demographic is much older. And so for each person that we would lose for that, there's 100 folks that appreciate, what we're doing in terms of making the race affordable and accessible.
Are you seeing, what gets me excited is seeing the growth of your numbers, right? Because that's firm believer, obviously, in the power of the sport of triathlon. Do you see that enthusiasm for the sport? Because you're seeing all the first timers. A lot of these first timers are coming to your events. Do you see them coming back and going, "Oh my God, this is great! I love this sport. I'm going to go do more."
Yeah, it actually breaks up into 3 buckets.
Hmm.
It's the first timers; they're not on anybody's radar. Then you have the repeat athletes, and you see them at every race you put on. I know who those folks are. You know them by name. They do not have to bring their ID to the races.
That's me.
And then right, and then the third one where you're competing against running races. You're competing
Gravel.
against Grand Fondos. You're competing against 5Ks,
Mhm.
whatever that is.
Right.
And so you're trying to do everything you can to make them race more frequently. And I also think, I'll put it this way, the 14 events we offer at our races, the triathlon relay, the run, bike, run, the swim bike, the swim run, the swim and the run at both the sprint and Olympic distance, exhausted. Those options keep people in and saying, gosh, I just want to work on my open water swimming. I'm going to go sign up for the Olympic swim for this race.
Mm.
So we're seeing a lot of that.
Do you see the sport, when I look at race directors, we had Rob Vigorito and Terry Davis and Jonathan Pauly, and there's a lot of people, Steve Tomboni, people who put on a lot of triathlons who are no longer in our world in terms of putting on races, or maybe they're just putting on running events. What do you see as the health of the sport?
So, the peak was 2012.
Yeah.
And by 2019, it had shrunk 37%.
And that was without COVID or anything. It sunk 30. That's with
Pre-COVID.
Ironman included in there as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And Ironman actually grew share during that time.
Right.
And we track hundreds of races. Our
Yeah.
team is good enough to track hundreds of races. And then post-COVID, and I think those numbers are almost finished up for this year, 21, 22, 23. So that's down another 30%.
Wow.
And so there's no rebound here. But again, if you look at a race, and I'm going to go to Newport, which is, I think there's untapped potential. So I'm not sure that's the model. In 2018, we had 500 folks.
Yep.
And we just had 1545 register. We just had 1209 on the participant list. I'm sure there was some breakage of folks who slept in that day. It was daylight savings time. I'm not sure, but massive numbers, a record number in a market, which is, the average house is $3 million, and they were getting an affordable race. So you put on a good product and at a great location, and Bob, you don't treat your customers worse than the airline industry in terms of transfers and defers. And we wouldn't book, we say this all the time in our circles, you would never book an airline fee or a hotel where you couldn't change the dates.
Right.
So why do we, as a very tight industry, do that? So I'm asking for other race directors to join. Certainly we don't want to make money off the back of kids. 7 to 17, it's not that expensive to get the next generation of athletes into the sport. We can do it. We can all do it. And then in terms of transfers and deferrals, you think about that, the customer I mentioned earlier, and just say, look at the benefits, seriously consider it. If what you're doing is working, if your numbers are growing, ignore it. But if it's not, at least take a hard cut at looking at some alternatives. And we're happy to share data with race directors that send us a note.
So free deferrals, free swim and transition clinics, free kids 7 to 17, free photos, which I think is pretty cool too. Right.
We got a couple of you in at Newport, I think, a week ago.
I go slow enough. You get a lot of opportunity to catch me. So what's next? You have any other events you want to put on? You want to go do longer events? What do you see down the line?
We talk way too frequently because you keep hitting all the points. So we've been tracking 70.3 Grassroots for 10 years, and every week we track that data. And you won't see us put a 70.3 on ever, for 2 or 3 reasons. Number one, it's a really long day for volunteers.
It is.
Number two, and probably actually number one, is the market has decided if you're doing 70.3 or 140.6, it's Ironman.
Right.
There's 50 races left in the United States, 50 to 60 races left in the United States that are Grassroots 70.3s. The average finishers are 100. Ironman comes into the same market where there's 100, 150 athletes, and they get 1,500. Even with Ironman struggling on lots of fronts, the market on Monday morning, the athlete doesn't want to say, I did the something-a-thon in some municipality. They want to say, I did an Ironman.
Right.
And that's it. So for long course, I don't think we'll ever be doing that. I think consolidating, look, our new race in Folsom, that's going to be any new race is tough. But having a second race in Northern California, we are announcing that Castaic Lake, which we've been partnered with for years, we're going to bring them underneath in our series. So
nice.
And we're partnering with Canyon High School, which great crew there. I don't think you'll see much change on the East Coast. Our 4th year in Texas. But we are adding races. I wish I could tell you we've got at least 2 more that I can't talk about right now. But these are race directors that have said, "Hey, we want to be part of your series. We're leaving the sport, and we don't want the race to die. Would you be interested?" And we're going to be announcing the off season 2 additional races. So,
are there new events? New triathlons happening in the U.S.? It seems like I keep looking and I don't see a lot of new events.
I tracked them last year in the off season, and I was, we were really looking at trying to find them. And I remember looking at the 70.3s, and I think I found one. I don't remember where it was. I think it was in the Southwest or maybe the Midwest. I don't remember, but it was like eye popping. Like, wow, there's a new race. So I don't see a lot of races happening. If you look at the data, we have about 600 plus races in the United States. There are 600 triathlons in the United States. I know there's a figure out there of 4,000 races.
Yeah.
I don't know how that math works. It is 600 plus. It was 600 plus the year before. It's pretty flat. this year. We'll see what the numbers come out, but probably somewhere around that number. So yeah, it's about 600 races.
What was it in 2012 at the peak?
It was about 2,000 races.
So we've gone from 2,000 races to 600.
That's about right.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't like, I'll give you a great example.
Yeah.
Say we have 20 races and 14 events at those races.
Right.
I'm not throwing 280 races.
No,
or
no,
280 events.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense when you're maybe you're going to a sponsor and I've got, Bob, I just want to let you know, I've got 7 million athletes and they're racing 280 events and they're all billionaires.
Yes.
And my economic impact is, $6 trillion every weekend.
Right.
We see that all the time.
When you're talking about an event, you can't say if you're putting on in the same day. If you're saying multiple days, I think it's different. But if you're saying I'm putting on a short distance try, a long distance try, and when I say short and long, sprint and Olympic, and a aquathon, an aqua bike, an open water swim, a duathlon, you can't say that's 7 events. That's underneath one umbrella. It's like saying, hey, I'm having 7 main courses. It's like, no, you got sides. You got one event with sides, one umbrella with sides.
Yeah, and I hope that number goes up. We certainly are optimistic. We know that it can go up. I think we just have to do a lot of work in non-traditional markets. I'll give you a great example. The youth program we're launching later this month. We're asking our athletes to go to the local school board, to go to the local city council. Here's your toolkit. Please go. Hi, I'm Bob Babbitt. I'd like to talk to you about this great program to get kids, doing a 5K, doing a 400-yard swim, doing their first sprint triathlon, all the features, and there's no cost to it, and get that word out. And so when they do, we're going to be incentivizing that community. Again, we have the product, free races. There's nothing, that's really good. And then we have enough races in the states, East Coast, West Coast, and Texas, that we also have the distribution. So I think we're uniquely positioned to do that.
You're very unique from a position of that you're putting on events, East Coast, Texas, and in California. How do you balance that? Because you've got to be promoting these things. You've got to be at the events. That's a lot of schlepping around.
Well, good news is there's a great group of volunteers and folks that get involved, maybe for a weekend for the large honorariums. I mean, the tax implications are off the charts. Kidding. But those are folks that believe in triathlon. They love it. They see the benefits. They love coming out for 2 days or one or 2 days. Again, that, since we began, we have free race entries for anybody that volunteers. The days, we like to say, with the days of volunteering for a bagel and a t-shirt should be long over.
Yes.
If you're volunteering for that and you'd like to volunteer for more, a nonprofit, and get a free race entry, Cal Tri Events is your home. We're not going to give you a half an entry. We're not going to, you'll get a free race entry and we'll be happy to see you back at the next race, but with a kid on.
So obviously my passion is short course, because I think that's the welcome mat to get people into our sport. And if they move on to 70.3 and Ironman, that's great. If they don't, they're in our sport forever. That's what we want. Do you see, you're seeing growth in your short course events? It used to, my feeling for a while was that people just had no interest, but you are a living, breathing example that people still love doing short course triathlon.
They do. And I missed the point earlier when you talked about long course. One of the reasons why we don't do 70.3 and 140.6 is as you get longer in the distance, you get less women. And I know that's a problem that Andrew Messick was having. 20% women, 25% global women, and in Europe I think it was 10%.
Right.
And women, they have, many times, the feedback we've gotten is, they have more responsibilities. They do not have the time. I also think that in terms of sustainable, you can do short course 6, 8, 10 hours a week You certainly can't do 70.3 and
No.
above in that time frame. So make something that you can do for 5 to 10 years. I really missed it. I'm going to be frank. I had Rocky Harris on our podcast 2018. He was our first guest, season 1 on California Triathlon Soup, and great conversation with Rocky. And he was just launching Time to Try. If you remember that, and that was
I
bringing
do.
100,000 people into the sport.
Yeah.
And
I
not
think
sure
we're about
exactly what
99,000 short so far. Yeah.
there might have been a few short, but the partnership with Ironman on that was just misaligned, in that we want to bring new folks in, and we're going to pick our main partner, which is a company that doesn't have the product for first timers. It was
Right.
just completely misaligned.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the reasons it didn't succeed. So
It was, yeah, basically it almost seemed like it was a great when Rocky first came on board. One of the big issues with USA Triathlon is they did not have a relation with Ironman. They did not have a relation with the most important cog in our triathlon machine. And Rocky, to his credit, immediately flew to Chattanooga, was there to meet Andrew Messick and talk about, hey, we got to grow the sport. What I think was missed was, hey, we need Ironman to help drive new people into short course. Short course needs to grow in order for it's hard, because it's easy to say, hey, I want people to do an Ironman or Ironman 70.3 and go get a coach and train for that right now, and then get your MDOT, and then they leave the sport. That's not that's not how you build the sport. The sport is built on the welcome mat, the sprint, the Olympic. If you decide to go long, great, but it's a lifestyle and you do it forever. That's what I think is missing.
And I won't give, I know that USAT has chief strategy officer, chief marketing officer. They have a lot of folks that spend a lot of time thinking about those kind of things. But when we left, the insurance scheme back in 2018 was our last year. We had just followed Lifetime. Lifetime had done that in 2017.
Right.
They were really concerned in those conversations about their data.
Right.
And they left, and that was $1 billion company with 1.5 million folks that go to those gyms. And as you know, this year they completely exited the business by selling Chicago and New York to Super League.
Right.
So there's, hey, past missteps, throw them away, move on. I think the NGO should be what I would call insurance neutral. If you pick their insurance that they offer, great. If you pick a product like Campland out of Colorado, or our insurance out of South Carolina, it doesn't really matter. I think that they're going to have to figure that out. And I remember talking to Tim Yount, 9 years ago, and I said, for short course, as we were putting on the relays for $60 back at Santa Fe Dam and Trick or Try, I was like, we need 3 things. These are the 3 things we need. First timers, free. Kids, free. And short course should not pay the same amount as long course.
Right.
Some of these athletes are out there for
$5 for one day. Yeah, no question.
They're out there for an hour versus being out there for 15 hours. They're taking a lot less risk. There's a lot less, issues with short course.
Mm-hmm.
And so why are you making the barriers high? So hopefully at some point, for them to turn sort of their ship around, they'll start being more, beginner friendly, and start lowering the barriers, even as small as, $15 insurance fee for short course beginners or kids. I think kids are like $10. You can get $10 and that kind of thing. Right. But still, $10 is great. Free is better. And we do free.
Free is good. Cool. Well, Tommy, thank you for taking time. I love what you bring to the sport. I love the fact that we're seeing growth, right? You're seeing growth in events when, again, like I mentioned before, the ones that are long, and then legacy is gone as well. So it's nice to have Southern California events that are vibrant and exciting with lots of people there, and keep doing what you're doing.
Well, we love having you at the races, Bob. Every time you go at the race, If I just put a rope on you and walk around transition, the number of you're very, very, very gracious to get, oh my gosh, can I get my picture taken with you? And every time you're super gracious. So we hope to see you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times next year.
Hopefully. I love it, Tommy. Thanks so much for keeping the fire burning, man. I appreciate it. Again, Thom Richmond has been our guest, Cal Trio. Tommy, what's the best website for people to find your events for next year?
CaliforniaTriathlon.org.
Easy. Love it. Thom Richmond again has been our guest, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. See ya.